So, when I was in 5th grade, I dislocated my knee. So my kneecap was on the outside edge of my leg. It was pretty uncomfortable. I started having bad ankle sprains in high school, college. I had frequent ankle sprains. In fact, one of my coworkers, when I was working for a year between undergraduate and graduate school, told me that I should not tell people that I stepped off a curb wearing sneakers. Instead, I should tell people that I was parachuting at night into a boulder-filled field because it was just pathetic that I couldn't step off a curb. Now, I didn't feel too bad because my whole life my mom told me that a klutz is a lovable little soul. It wasn't my fault. Well, about 8 years ago, my daughter started having health issues, and within 2 years, she was diagnosed with something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS. And her diagnosis made me realize I had the same thing. I had hypermobile joints. In other words, my joints move beyond the range that they're supposed to, which of course led to damage and joint pain. But hey, I'd lived with it for over 50 years, and my mom had lived with it for over 70 years. So it caused some damage over the years. Now, I've learned how to take care of myself. So for instance, you will frequently see that I have various colored tape on my arms. I've actually got it up from my shoulder and my lower arms. You've probably seen my fancy little arthritis gloves. If I take off my arthritis gloves, I can show you that I also have, here we go, I have these ring splints. They're not jewelry. They are there to prevent me from making my fingers go past the normal range of motion. You've probably seen sometimes I've got these gorgeous little wrist braces that prevent my wrists, hands, and thumbs from moving. I have knee braces, ankle braces, you name it, I've got it. I even have, when my knee was really acting up, a stick. The doctor thought I should get a cane, but all I can think of is if I'm pushing down on a cane, I'm going to hurt my hand and my wrist. So I got a stick. And before I forget, I know we have an exam coming up, and this, as soon as I got this stick, I did this and it works beautifully. So I'm going to say, when the exams come up, you shall all pass. Okay, good. Now you don't have to worry about the exam. You're going to do great. Okay. Now, the good thing about my daughter getting her diagnosis at a young age is that she also knows how to protect her joints, and she and I both go to physical therapy regularly to help us learn how to take care of ourselves. So hopefully as she gets older, she's not going to have as many problems and pains as I have. But boy, knowing more about this earlier would have been nice. Now, what that comes down to is that there are lots of different genetic variations. Obviously, we all look a little bit different. We have different genes, different variations of genes, and some of them can cause disease or other chronic conditions. So there are some diseases like diabetes where you may have, as soon as I say diabetes, you probably have a picture in your head of what that means. I don't know if it's a correct version of what happens with diabetes or not. And unless you or someone you know is diagnosed with diabetes, or you actually go and start researching diabetes, you'll never know whether you have a good idea of what diabetes is or not. Other diseases like the EDS that I have are not very well known, although more is being learned all the time, which means that patients are frequently more of an expert than their doctors are. Now, my daughter and I are very lucky because we have a doctor here in Arcata who is very good and is willing to learn. But there is a very active patient education group, and they have yearly national and international patient meetings. So this summer, the meeting was actually via Zoom, which was interesting. In previous years we've gone, so I happen to have my little bracelet, and you will possibly at various times see me wearing a t-shirt. Does that show? Let me get this up here so that this shows that it's a zebra, because doctors are taught if you hear hoof prints, think horses, not zebras, and the EDS community's argument is that if you hear hoof beats, it might be a zebra. So sometimes as the patient, you need to educate yourself because your doctor may not know much about the condition that you are suffering from. And then there's other diseases that are exceedingly rare. Rare diseases generally have fewer than a dozen people worldwide that are known to have this particular genetic change that causes some very rare disease. So genetic diseases run the gamut from something that's very, very rare to something that's very, very common to something that's very well known, something that's hardly known at all. And more genetic information is constantly being discovered. And what that means for you is that at some point you or somebody you love is likely to be diagnosed with some sort of a genetic condition. And it's going to be really important for you to be able to learn about it and decide how to deal with your health care. Decide if a particular treatment is good or just some snake oil, right? So that is why I designed this project, this human genetics project that you're going to start working on now, and it's going to be going on throughout the rest of the semester. The assignment is up on Canvas, and basically you're going to go to a website and you're going to look up the gene or genes that are involved in the a human disease that you're interested in, and you are going to study it. Okay, so I want to go into a little bit about how you're going to do that. Okay, so this is what you're going to want to go do. If you don't find or remember what the URL is, although the URL is posted on Canvas for you, all you need to do is type OMIM into your search box, and that will take you to this website, the Online Mendelian Inheritance in Man. Now, when you go there the first time, there's going to be this little box that you see up on your screen that says, do you want to donate money? And you can say, no, I don't want to donate money. You're not required to do that. So unless you have a reason that you feel like you want to do that, don't worry about that. Just click the X, it'll go away, and you will get this web database of all the curated human genetic information that is available. All right, so the first page looks pretty simple, doesn't it? There's not much there. If you want to get help, there is this area here where you can get some example searches. You can look at this help guide. You can even do an OMIM video tutorial. You're welcome to do any of those things, or you can just search for something. So I was just telling you about the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So what I'm going to do is type in Ehlers-Danlos. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. You might guess that I've done this a few times. All right. Whoa. All right. There's a whole bunch of things that come up. What do you do with it? Well, you can look and you can see that there are different types: vascular type, classic type, right? Periodontal type, classic, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, what? You can look at one of these. You can also look for, that didn't come up, let's say hypermobile, because I want to look up about the hypermobile type. Classic, vascular, classic. Okay, let's look at the next page. Look at the next page. So you can see that sometimes you're going to find an awful lot of information here. Okay, and I am not finding the one that I wanted. All right, well, let's just go back and let's do a different search. All right, because there's a lot of stuff here. I'm going to stop. Okay, I'm back. I just did some searching around to find what I wanted, which was to type in the word hypermobility. That took a couple times to get it spelled right. And now the first thing that you see coming up on our search page is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome hypermobility type. Okay, so there's a bunch of other things that are similar to that, but let's just click on this first one. All right, one thing that you will see when we do this is it tells you some information, right? And there's lots of information, other features, molecular genetics, but not really all that much as it could be. All right, so if I was to try and do my search, my project on this, I would look and I would say, I do not see any particular gene. So even though I'm really interested in hypermobility EDS, believe it or not, there's something like 16 different types of EDS, and hypermobility type, the type I have, is the only one they don't know a gene for. I can't really write a report on a gene if I don't have any information about a gene. So I'm going to go back and choose something different. So for instance, let's look at classic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Okay, so this is the 5th one on this particular list. And I'm choosing that because this is one of the forms that we do have a gene for. And so they've got a whole bunch of things, former names for this. So if you were to do some research and you were looking at older literature, this would be some other gene names you might have up at the top. And then we have this table here. And this table is something that you really want to look at because this is telling us about the genes that are involved in this particular form of the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So the other thing I wanted to point out to you, I'm going to make this a little bit narrower. Ooh, that's ugly. And when you go to the assignment, there is going to be a link to a worksheet that looks like this worksheet here. And there's some descriptions of it, and then there's a few things to fill out. So the name of the disorder, if I was doing this one, I would type in EDS classical. Okay, it's a classical type of EDS. All right, you would type in whatever gene, whatever disease you're looking at. Name of the genes involved. Well, how do I know what the gene is? Well, that's where we come back to this table. So here we have gene locus, call 5A1. Okay, call 5A1. Now, what I happen to know is this is collagen 5A1. Okay, call stands for collagen, and I happen to know that because I obviously have done a bit of research on EDS, and collagen is a protein that is found in our joints, and that's what's defective in most people with EDS. All right, so that's the name of the gene. Now the next question is for the chromosome location. Well, how do I know the chromosome location? Well, we come back to this table on the website again. The first part says location. It says 9q34.3. So I'm going to write that in. 9q34.3. Okay, so what that means, if you think about the structure of a metaphase chromosome, remember it's kind of got two arms, and then at the center, the centromere, it's kind of held in. On chromosomes, one arm is going to be longer than the other, and so the two arms are called P and Q, and P is the long arm and Q is the short arm. That's what it means. So what this means is that, whoops, I put P instead of 9. How bad. What this means is that the COL5A1 gene is on chromosome number 9 on the Q arm, the short arm. And then remember when you looked at the pictures of the chromosomes, there were all those bands. And those bands are numbered from the centromere moving towards the tip. And so this gene is located in band 34.3. So the 34th band has been divided up, and it's the third subsection of the 34th band. Okay, so historically people would figure out approximately where a gene was by looking at the bands on chromosomes. Once we were able to actually do the sequencing of human genome, we could get even closer, but that's still a useful marker for where genes are located. Okay, the next thing it's asking you is the type of inheritance. Okay, well, we look at our table again, and it says inheritance, AD. And if you want to know what AD stands for, you click on it and it tells you that AD means autosomal dominant. So write in autosomal dominant. Okay, so autosomal, remember that means it's a chromosome that's not an X or a Y, and dominant meaning it's typical Mendelian dominant inheritance. If you have one copy of that allele, you will express the condition, at least to some extent. All right. Then it asks for a brief description of the normal gene, a brief description of the mutation, and the source of your information. If I stay here, I would say the OMIM website. If I do some more research, I can add other things to that. How do I find something about the normal gene and the mutation? Well, let's come back to the website. So there's a bunch of information here. It tells you about the genes, it tells you about the disease, it tells you what kinds of things happen to people who have the disease, how you diagnose it. It's got lots and lots and lots of links to primary literature. So if there's something you want to learn more about, you can click on it and find that resource. This one, you can see there's already a lot more information than there was about the genes for the hypermobile type, where we didn't know anything about the genes of the hypermobile type. And inheritance and mapping and molecular genetics and the history and on and on. And then here's the reference list. Okay, so basically what you will see is that some conditions there's a lot of information known, some there's very little known, some that's somewhere in between. So you can go through there, you can do that. If you want to, you can search other sources to learn more about the normal functions of the collagen 5A1 gene. You can get that information from the OMIM or from other sources. What other sources? Well, you can always Google things, but how much accurate information you will get is a little bit hard to say. This external links box on the right hand side of your OMIM results page is going to give you some links to various other databases. All right, so if you wanted to learn more about the protein, you would go to UniProt. If you want to learn more about clinical resources, trials, the genetics of various different places, you can do this. If you want to know about animal models where you can study this disease, you can do that. There's a mouse model, there's all kinds of things. And then there are also sometimes cell lines. Now, every different disease is going to be different, what you will find in these various databases, but that's another place where you can get some more information. So that's just to introduce you to all kinds of resources that you can use to start working on your project. So for your first assignment, it's basically to choose your topic that you want to research over the course of the remainder of the semester. Fill out this form. And you can see, here I would say something about the normal function of the gene is that collagen is a structural protein. And the mutation is that there's a mutation in such and such a place that makes it so the collagen is not as strong, for instance. Whatever the information is that you find, it doesn't have to be a lot. This is just the start of your research process. But once you fill this out, upload it on Canvas for me, you will note that this assignment is worth Where does it say it? Oh, it probably says it on Canvas. But this is going to be worth 5 points out of the 100 total points that your project is going to be worth. So what I've done is for this project, I've broken it up into a series of smaller assignments so that when you get to the end and you turn in your full project, and we'll talk more about that later, you know, you've got a lot of the work done ahead of time. So this is my way of trying to help you keep going on this process and not suddenly get to the end of the semester and say, ah, I need to have it done. All right. I hope this is helpful, and I guess that's it. I hope it's helpful. Bye.